Welcome back to Legal Matters with the American law firm and WIFR. I'm 23 News anchor Mike Garrigan, and my second guest this evening is attorney John Hanson with the American law firm. Legal Matters is an informational and news call-in show devoted to legal topics of interest to State Line viewers. We have attorneys standing by right now live to take your call. We'll provide you with free information on your issue, whatever it may be, so call now. It's time now for tonight's opening statement. In our first segment, we'll get to know a little more about the American law firm as well as talk about bankruptcy. Then in the next segment, we'll dive into the housing market and talk about short sales and deed in lieu. But before we get started with John here tonight, let's take time to remind you of the practice areas that the American law firm concentrates in. There's a Center for Divorce and Family Law, an Auto Accident and Injury Department, a Bankruptcy Institute, an Office for DUI, Traffic, and Criminal Defense, an Advanced Care Plan and Probate Center, a Division for Real Estate and Business Matters, a branch for Social Security and Disability, and a Division for Immigration and Naturalization. So please feel free to call tonight and discuss any of these practice areas live with the attorneys standing by. Again, that's a free call. And first of all, John, why don't you tell us a little bit more about American Law Firm?
Sure. Well, thank you for having us on the show.
Sure.
Of course. And like you mentioned, we are a general practice law firm, and we do have a lot of different areas we practice in, like you read off a second ago. And so basically that means we have a lot of attorneys that concentrate in a lot of different areas. And that's why we have a number on the screen now so people can call in different areas of law. Even though we're talking about bankruptcy and some real estate issues tonight, they can call about any subject and kind of get some answers on the phone tonight during the show. We're located over in Mulford and State, near that intersection, and we're a Rockford-based law firm, and so we're here to help.
And it shows from the list of all what you cover just about everything.
We do.
All right, and we should mention that a lot of people go to a doctor. Not a lot of people go to the lawyer all the time.
Right.
It's not a regular thing. So for people that may be a little timid about it,
Right.
Ease their mind. What can they expect?
Sure. I mean, we recognize that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts to go see a lawyer about a problem, somebody you probably never met before. And a lot of times you're talking about some really personal, intimate details in financial matters. And so we try to ease that. We try to make that a little bit easier for people by offering free consultations where they come in and sit down with one of our attorneys and talk about what their goals are and what their needs are, and then we translate that into some solutions for them. If they need to go forward, we offer simple flat fees for attorney's fees so they know upfront what the fee is going to be, helps budget for that. And also if they're in a financial bind, we also talk about payment plans with clients to help them get to their goals if there may be a financial obstacle. So different things we offer to help ease that transition. Okay,
John, we mentioned earlier one of the areas the American law firm focuses on is bankruptcy. So tell us,
Right.
What are some of the key things people should know about bankruptcy just in general?
Sure. Well, bankruptcy obviously is about discharging debts. It's about managing debts. And for individuals, the most common bankruptcy they're going to encounter is a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13. Now, Chapter 7, and chapter, by the way, refers to actual chapters in the code books.
Okay.
In the old days. They have the books lined up. And so Chapter 7 is a one-time discharge of debt, kind of like wiping a slate clean. And a Chapter 13 is a payment plan for debts, where you pay most of your debts over a period of years. So that's kind of where most people encounter the process.
Okay, so what's involved in that bankruptcy process from the client's point of view?
Well, from the client's point of view, they come in, we sit down with them in a free consultation, and we look at their finances, we look at their monthly budget, their debts, talk about how they got into financial binds, and we put all that into a solution, whether it's a different chapter or another. We walk them through the process, we talk about the pros and cons, the timing of bankruptcy, what life is like after a bankruptcy. And so we have a lot of pre-filing bankruptcy consultations and discussions with the clients so they know what they're getting into. Once we file a bankruptcy, then we go to court for the clients and we interact with the federal judge on their behalf. And we also go to what's called a 341 hearing with the clients to help them make sure everything goes smoothly. So there's a lot of hand-holding and a lot of involvement on our end.
Now, earlier you were talking a little bit about Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13. It seems like for most people, Chapter 7 would be preferred because it's a full discharge of debt.
Right.
So when would Chapter 13 make more sense?
Well, Chapter 7 is kind of the goal for most people if they have certain types of debt. So the way it works is if a lot of the person's debt is what we call unsecured, which would be credit cards, medical bills, things that aren't attached to a house or aren't attached to a car, then that's more of a Chapter 7 situation. But some people will have barriers where they can't file a Chapter 7 even though they want to. They might have too much income or too many assets, and so we might look at a 13. And also a Chapter 13 is a pretty common approach if someone has a foreclosure situation but they want to keep their house.
Okay.
We move that debt into a 13, the foreclosure can't proceed. So there's different benefits to either one.
Well, that makes some sense there. Now, are there any kind of debts that can't be bankrupt?
There are a few. Most notably would be IRS tax debts, Illinois tax, so Department of Treasury debts,
Okay.
although there's some exceptions to that. So if someone's facing a debt situation with taxes, come in for a free consultation. We'll sit down and see what their situation is, because there's a few exceptions. Other than taxes, student loans can be a difficult thing to bankrupt, child support also. So there's certain ins and outs on that.
And again, we're talking with John Hanson from American Law Firm. Lawyers are standing by to answer your call. It's a free call on any subject matter you want, and they're here for another hour. So if it's busy, keep trying. Now, John, if you have a married couple, must they file for bankruptcy together?
No, one spouse can file bankruptcy on their own and leave the other spouse out of it. And if that happens, the other spouse's credit history won't be affected. And the creditors, let's say you're doing a Chapter 7, you have a bunch of credit card debt you want to discharge, the creditors can't go after the spouse if they're not in the bankruptcy and they're not on the credit card. So it's a complete isolated thing. And I do want to reiterate, like you mentioned, the phones are pretty busy tonight on the show, so just keep trying to get through. And after the show's over, we're still answering the phone for about a half hour. And the next day tomorrow, we can answer the phone too. So keep trying to get through and we'll talk to you.
Now, is filing for bankruptcy a one-time thing? If you filed for bankruptcy before, are you allowed to again at a certain point?
Real common question. You can file more than one bankruptcy in your life, but there's waiting periods involved that kind of set out how long someone has to wait before they can file. Now, for our clients, obviously, we hope that we never have to do another bankruptcy for them, and they hope that too. But once in a while, something happens unforeseen, like a medical issue, God forbid, that causes that to be talked about again. And so for Chapter 7 bankruptcies, which we talked about tonight, generally there's an 8-year gap between filing Chapter 7s. Chapter 13, a little more complex, but generally it's a 2-year waiting period between Chapter 13s. So there are some rules with that.
All right, very informative stuff. And right now, as the segment is being shown, again, we have attorneys standing by to answer legal questions from callers. The number is 815-394-1776. Viewers should call the number right now to speak with one of the American Law Firm attorneys to discuss their options. When we return to Legal Matters, we'll focus on real estate law, specifically how to handle short sales and deeds in lieu.
Picture experience. Legal experience in many areas of law. Dedication. Giving full attention to each client and their individual legal needs. Affordability. Offering simple flat fees and payment plans. Now picture the American Law Firm. Call the American Law Firm today at 815-394-1776 for your free consultation. Our country was founded on a Bill of Rights which set a bold standard for the protection of individual rights, a standard set for the rest of the world to follow. At the American Law Firm, you also have a Bill of Rights as a client. By offering free consultations, simple flat fees, and payment plans to our clients, we deliver effective legal solutions to your problems and goals. Call the American Law Firm at 815-394-1776 to learn more about how we represent our clients and how we can protect you.
Welcome back. It's Mike Garrigan and attorney John Hanson from the American Law Firm, continuing to talk legal matters that affect many state liners. If you want to talk to an attorney right now, live for free, here's your chance. Just call the number on your screen. An attorney from the American Law Firm will be there on the other end to answer your call all the way up until 7:30. So if it's busy, try again. Now, another area of law, John, your firm practices is real estate, and it involves helping people with short sales and deeds in lieu. Can you tell us a little bit about what that deals with?
Yeah, most people encounter a short sale or a deed in lieu decision if they are about to be behind in their mortgage or already are behind in their mortgage. And so briefly, what a short sale entails is selling your house to a third party, just like you would normally sell a house to somebody. You list it on the market, somebody makes an offer, but the sale price is going to be less than you owe. So the bank has to approve it, and it's selling short. So there's a process where we deal with the bank, we get their approval, and then we sell the house just like any other sale. And a deed in lieu is where there's not going to be an effort made to sell it to a third party because we know that's not going to happen for the financials, so we just deed the house back to the bank, hence the name deed in lieu. And it's in lieu of a foreclosure. You're saving the bank the trouble of doing a foreclosure. So it's a different process, and there's some ins and outs that are associated with that. And so we kind of decide with the clients which way is best. After we talk to them, they come in for a free consultation, and we sit down and look at what their mortgage is, how far behind they may be, and what's best for them.
So that's how someone knows. I mean, how does someone know which process is really right for them?
Well, let's take a short sale, for example. Let's say someone has a house that's worth $250,000, and their mortgage, and they have a second mortgage also, that is around $290,000. And now they're behind in their mortgage too because of some unforeseen circumstance.
Right.
We can follow through with the short sale process, but that involves us putting the house on the market for at least 6 months. We have to work with the bank to get an approval on any offers that come in. And then when the short sale is approved, we need to see if the client's going to be still pursued by the bank or not for any leftovers on that mortgage called deficiency. Deed in lieu, again, if we feel like no offer is going to come in on the market that's worth pursuing, then we'll just talk to the bank about deeding it back to them. Again, there's still that struggle with is the client going to be walking away from their debt, or even after the deed in lieu, are they going to be still liable for that? So we really work with the banks to try to avoid that.
You really do a lot of legwork. It's very important to talk to a lawyer to get that kind of information for sure. So if your firm does successfully complete a short sale or deed in lieu for a person, would that person still owe money to the bank who holds the mortgage?
Right, like I mentioned, that's the trick, because in some circumstances, a person on their own could try to do a short sale or a deed in lieu, and after the whole deal is done, the bank still says, well, you still owe us $20,000 because the sale didn't cover that part of the debt. And some people even end up doing bankruptcies after a short sale or deed in lieu because they still owe money. So we work with the bank, we work with the financials, and we try to seek that goal where the client can be released from any remainder of the debt after a short sale or deed in lieu. But there are also some tax issues with that. If somebody gets forgiven debt, $20,000, $30,000 forgiven debt, that can be considered income tax. So we'll sit down one step at a time with clients and we'll say, here's the pros and cons. Here's what your life will be like right after we do this, and here's the pros and cons with that, and here's what your life's going to be like right after we do this option. So a lot of preparation first with our clients.
That's right. We've many of us have heard of the federal programs HAMP or HARP.
Right.
Now, can they help out people who are facing the process of the short sale or the deed in lieu?
They can help in some circumstance. Let's define the programs. HAMP is for people who are behind and in default on their mortgage. And it's essentially where the government will subsidize a modification. So the bank's not on their own making modifications, they have the government backing them up. And it's a good option because basically the client will get a no charge refinance done, and it can lower the interest down pretty low. And HARP would be for people who are underwater. They're still current on their mortgage, but they just owe way more than the house is worth. And so that's a restructuring process that the federal government backs. So they can help. And someone that comes in to see us, we'll talk about how to get a part of that program and see if that can help us out too. So it's been very beneficial.
And now in this economy, have you seen a lot of these situations arise more so than maybe in the past?
We have. As you know, I mean, it's been a long recession and the real estate market's taken the hit, and it took a hit first. And so people's home values are starting to creep up a little bit, but even in certain parts of Rockford, they're not creeping up very much. So it's been a real stagnant home value market. Equity hasn't increased. And mortgage interest just keeps churning out. So it's been a real common issue that people have come and see us about. We're really busy at the firm meeting with people and giving them some advice lately.
So if you have that issue, you are not alone.
For sure. And give us a call tonight if you have that issue and we'll talk to you.
And that's also why the phones may be busy when you make that call. But once again, lawyers from the American Law Firm are standing by to take those calls live. They'll go on till 7:30 taking your calls. We will be right back with a closing statement when Legal Matters returns.